Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Sitaram, Lakshman Hanuman, Sitaram, Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda, Shri Radhe. Radhe. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nittai Gora Haribol, Nittai Gora Haribol. Shishi Radha Gokulananda ki, Shishi Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shishi Gornitai ki, Jagat Guru Prabhupada ki, Nittai Gaur Pramanande. Hare Krishna. So this evening we'll be having a Bhagavad Gita class. And as usual, what we'll start off with is called Mangalacharan. So how many of you know Mangalacharan? No? That's fine. Fantastic. One of the most important things is that when Srila Prabhupada established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness temples all over the world, is that he had wanted and he had envisioned for these type of classes to take places in every temple. You see, often in our life, so much of our energy and our attention and our focus, we're investing it and we're giving it away in environments that actually disempowers us, in an environment that actually makes us more disconnected, where the pursuit is constantly revolved around happiness rather than Krishna. And ultimately, when the pursuit becomes more about Krishna, then the symptom naturally is that we experience happiness. Similarly, when, many of you may have experienced gardening or you may have not experienced gardening, but when you actually see a seed, and then, that seed is growing into a beautiful plant or whatever it is that you envision it, do you water the twigs and the branches or do you water the root? What do you water? The root, right? The root. Because when you naturally water the root, then everything else experiences nourishment. So in our own lives, we're constantly looking for happiness, but we're looking for it in the wrong places. And so therefore, when we actually water the root, what is the root? The root is our spirituality. When we actually water the root, then naturally all other areas of our life, we experience fulfillment because Krishna's there. So therefore, these classes are so important. We're constantly eating. Often we eat junk food, other times we eat healthy food. Similarly, we're constantly hearing. Sometimes we hear a lot of gossips and other times we hear about Krishna. But a good dietitian, a good person that's actually trying to be healthy, they ensure that they're consistent with whatever they're eating, whatever exercise they're doing. So similarly, we have to be very consistent with what we're regularly hearing, because it actually creates the reality and experience. So if we want a Krishna consciousness experience, then we have to hear about Krishna regularly. So please, you may know these prayers or you may not know these prayers, irrespective. I just want you to actually take the palms of your hand and put it together like this. And we will start, and you can close your eyes. Om Jnana Timandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Emilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachade Shatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhishcha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna. Thank you all so much for being here. Just one request, can we just close the door, please? Thank you so much. So thank you all for being here. It's so wonderful to see you all, and I hope that we can churn something beautiful from the Bhagavad Gita. We're all here to learn from each other, so I hope that we'll all have the opportunity to have a beautiful discussion. And I just want to give a warm welcome to everyone from the 7-day Be a Monk course. So welcome to you all. Thank you so much for also being here. So yes, it is said here that spiritual life is hard, but material life is impossible. You can see that practically the whole civilization and society, everyone is constantly pursuing for things in life, but they're never satisfied. So this is actually the real nectar. This is actually the real gold. This is the real fortune. And when you understand this, then you can understand how to navigate in your life, in your relationship with people around you, but ultimately also your relationship with Krishna. So today we're reading from chapter 8, entitled Attaining the Supreme. And the verse will be 12. Many of you, usually it's on the screen, but you can just also take your phone and then just kind of search it up. Chapter 8, verse 12. Bhagavad Gita, yes. So what we'll do is that usually the format of this is that we recite it in Sanskrit. It is said that actually the temple is a school of learning and also making mistakes. So we make often a lot of mistakes, but in the process we learn and we're able to share. So I'll recite in Sanskrit and then we'll go through the transliteration and translation. Sarva varani samyamya manoridi nurudyacha murdini adhayatmanaha paranam astito yogadaranam sarvavarani samyamya manoridi nurudyacha murdini adya atmana paranam astito yogadaranam sarvavarani samyamya manoridi nurudyacha murdani adya atmana paranam astito yogadaranam. So what we can do is we can just have one person from the gentleman's side, from the Prabhu's side recite, and one from the Mataji. Eight 12. Anyone? Sarvavarani samyamya manoridi nurudyacha murdini adhyatmana pranam astito yogadaranam. Thank you. Anyone from the ladies? Sarvavarani samyamya manoridi nurudyacha murdini adhyatmana pranam astito yogadaranam. Thank you so much. Transliteration. Sarvavarani, all the doors of the body. Samyamya, controlling. Mana, the mind. Ridi, in the heart. Nirudya, confining. Cha, also. Murdini, on the head. Adhyaha, adhaya, fixing. Atmana, of the soul. Pranam, the life air. Ashita, situated in. Yogadaranam, the yogic situation. My humble request is, can we all just mute our phone, please? Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. The translation. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki. To practice yoga as suggested here, one first has to close the doors of all sense enjoyment. This practice is called pratyahara, or withdrawing the senses from the sense object. The sense organs for acquiring knowledge, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch, should be fully controlled and should not be allowed to engage in self-gratification. In this way, the mind focuses on the supersoul in the heart, and the life force is raised to the top of the head. In the 6th chapter, this process is described in detail, but as mentioned before, this practice is not practical in this age. The best process in Krishna consciousness, if one is always able to fix his mind on Krishna in devotional service, it is very easy for him to remain in an undisturbed transcendental trance or in samadhi. Translation once again. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. Hare Krishna. So, thank you all so much once again for being here. And today, actually, the class is entitled Die Before Dying. So, as many of you know of a wonderful personality called Bhaktivedanta Swami, and he has actually given such a beautiful lecture on what it means to die before dying. And often death is something that people fear, is something that people, whenever they think about this concept of death, the immediate thought is like, let's try and find a way to relieve ourselves from it, to distract ourselves from it, and to divert our attention from it. Fortunately for all of us today, really the topic is not going to be about dying, but it's going to be something a lot more inspiring. It's going to be about how actually this concept, we can try and dovetail it in a way that we can deepen our own spirituality and our practice of Krishna consciousness. So, what does the word yoga mean? Let's have some sort of practical discussion, because often we come for these classes and we listen, but majority of the time the question is, what are we actually applying in our lives? It is said that there's 3 things that comes to mind when people are listening to class. What am I hearing? What does it mean to me? And what is relevant about this class? And what will I do about it? 4 actually. So let's try and make this a lot more practical. What does yoga mean? So some of you may think, yeah, I already know what yoga is. I thought this was like some sort of a comprehensive Bhagavad Gita class. But sometimes we actually have to go to the basic. We have to go to the foundation. You know, often in our pursuit for highly elevated philosophy, we lose our humanity. We lose our spirituality. So therefore, let's actually get to the basic. What does yoga mean? And don't be shy. Union, okay. Union, fantastic. What about on this side? What does yoga mean? Union, okay. And don't be afraid to also give different answers. It means, and also explore. Explore. It doesn't just necessarily have to be a one response in your own understanding and meaning. There's the translation of what it means, but what does it also mean if you go deeper than that? Connection with the Lord. Okay, now we're going a little bit deeper. So connection with the Lord and union. So Srila Prabhupada, okay, Bishal? Soul to soul, heart to heart. Thank you so much for sharing. So yes, it has many meaning, but Prabhupada actually puts it very beautifully. What Prabhupada says is that the actual translation of the word yoga means plus. It means plus. And plus, the opposite of plus is what? Minus. So the problem in our society today is that we're living on the concept of the body. And so when we live in the concept of the body, what happens is that then food remains food. Hunger remains hunger. Water remains water. Music remains music. All these things, we look for ways to exploit it. We look for ways, like, you see, there's a good, beautiful analogy that is given. Is that imagine if you're in a field and this field is filled with so many grains. Like, each animal and creatures may come and take what its quota. It may take what it needs. But then a human being comes, takes what it needs, but then elaborates even further and takes more of what it wants. So Srila Prabhupada actually said here that in this civilization there is enough for our need, but not enough for our greed. And so it's so important that when we're on a bodily concept, what happens is that our lives becomes orientated around greediness. And this can be on a subtle level, but it can also be on a gross level. Often our life revolves around, I want my son to do this, I want to do this, I want to do that. It's always about accomplishment, achievement, success. It's all about fast pace. It's all about progress. But then in the process of all that, what we often lack to realize is that in the pursuit of our own happiness, we neglect that others may also experience distress. That's the reality we live today. That's what happens when we're on the bodily concept. It becomes about exploitation. It becomes about outcome. And in the process of all that, we forget who we are. You see, we don't see life as it is. We see life as we are. So it's not that we're just kind of seeing life through the lenses of our eyes, but we're seeing life through the lenses of our mind. And we all have had individual upbringing, individual culture, individual way of being brought up. And unless we purify the consciousness, unless we purify the mind, then what happens is that we will always live in a world of scarcity. We will always live in a world where there is never enough. And what does that do? It creates a sense of anxiety. It creates a sense of stress. It creates a sense of distress. So therefore, yoga means plus. If you go in your bank today and you check it and you see many, many, many zeros, a zero still remains a zero. But the moment that you add 1 to that 0, what happens? Then it increases in value. So yoga actually means an increase in value. And what is that increase of value? Is actually when we center Krishna around everything that we do. So it is said here that when we actually integrate bhakti into food, then it becomes what? Prasadam. When we integrate hunger, when we integrate bhakti into hunger, what does it become? Fasting. We fast. Half day fasting, full day fasting, we fast. When we integrate bhakti into water, what does it become? Amrita. It becomes nectar. Like, you have like nectar water there. Maha water. When you integrate bhakti into music, what does it become? Kirtan. I'm sure you all know that because you love it. When you integrate bhakti into a house, what does it become? Temple. When you integrate action into bhakti, when you integrate bhakti into action, what does that become? It becomes service, devotional service. And when you integrate bhakti into work, what does it become? Yes, seva, karma. It becomes like, something inspiring. So Srila Prabhupada elaborates. So 0 is always 0. 100 million times 0 adds, it is 0. But when there is 1, immediately value increases. So do you see how integrating bhakti into your life increases the value of life? So it's really important. Often we think spirituality is separate from material life. We think, yes, let me come to the temple for a month, 3 months, for 7 days. And then after when I go home, then that's it. It's back to the overwhelming reality of life. But that's not necessarily the case. You can integrate bhakti into every sphere of your life. Whether you live in the temple, whether you live outside of the temple. And there's many examples around you. You see, there was once someone called Roger Bannister. And what he did is that he broke the 1 mile in 4 minutes. And the way he was able to do that, I believe it was 4 miles in 1 minute. And the way he was able, and when he did that, what had happened was many people after him were able to accomplish the same goal. But prior to that, nobody was able to accomplish the same goal. Srila Prabhupada, when he came to America, he established 108 temples around the world. But then from that, what had happened is that many people took to that, became inspired by that, and were able to visualize in their own life that, hey, I can also open a center. I can also open a temple. I can also share Krishna consciousness. So we have to be able to see a living examples in our lives. And when we see a living examples in our lives of what bhakti is, then we're able to become inspired and we're able to believe and instill within our own lives. So it's really important. It's about the environment that you're in and the people that you surround yourself with. And so if you surround yourself with soul-orientated people, then what happens is that everything what you do becomes righteous. And you're able to develop a sense of surrender. And you're able to remember that I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for Krishna. That suffering, that pain, that struggle for material existence comes when we try and attempt to do things for ourselves. So, and you know what? Prabhupada said the most amazing thing, and I want you to, each one of you, remember this. This is so important. whatever we do in life will be tested at the time of death. We can show all the external progress. We can memorize the Bhagavad Gita. We can give wonderful classes. We can come to the temple every day. We can do so many things in our bhakti. But the real test comes at the time of death. It comes when we're departing from this world. And suddenly what happens is that our attraction becomes presented to us. So whatever we have been subtly meditating on, whatever we have been subtly enjoying, whatever we have been subtly focused on, it will reveal to us and come to us in a time when our heart stops beating, our breathing stops, and our brain function stops. And I have seen many examples of this in life. So therefore, the reality is that externally we may be able to showcase ourselves to be such wonderful devotees, but actually what is happening in our internal environment? It is said that the ecology of our heart is what purifies the ecology of our environment. So if bhakti is integrated into the deep root of our heart, then what happens is that that same bhakti manifests around us. It manifests in our association, it manifests in our character, it manifests in our qualities. And these are things that cannot be replicated. Shishi Radha Gokulananda ki, Shishi Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shishi Gauranitai ki. It cannot be replicated. It may be able to be imitated. We may be able to imitate, but we can't replicate, we can't create. It can't be genuine. An imitation will always remain an imitation, but something genuine will also always remain something genuine. So therefore, it's so important to remember, it's not about just what we're doing externally, but it's also about how it is internally transforming our lives. So the question that each one of you can ask is that the activities that you do on your regular day-to-day basis, whether it's the sense of seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, whatever it is, how are those activities engaged in Krishna consciousness? How are they engaged in something higher? But more importantly than that, let's go a little bit deeper. What is the intention? What is the intention? You may be able to position yourself in the right place in order for Krishna consciousness. You may even be able to change your environment for Krishna. But if your intention, if your heart is not in the right place, then what happens is that at the time of death, all will be revealed. So it's really, really important. Ultimately, life is like a classroom, it is said. And so I want every single one of you to visualize that. I want you to see that actually this life is like a test. And not a test, this life is like a classroom. That's how it is described. And what happens in a classroom, you study, and then later on, the harder you study, the genuine benefit that you reap. I'm sure many of you have been to school. And often what it is that when you don't study and then the test is coming soon and then you think a day before that, let me just try and put everything into my mind and remember it the next day. How does that often go? It creates an overwhelming feeling. It creates anxiety. It creates stress, because that's not how life works. That's not how life works. Life is not like, I'm just going to become complacent, I'm going to become comfortable, but then when it comes to the time of death, suddenly I'll remember Krishna. It doesn't work like that. Whatever you have attraction for, that is what you'll meditate on at the time of death. So, and there's so many wonderful examples. You see, Krishna is so amazing. The Hare Krishna movement is so incredible because we have not been completely left in the dark. It's not that we're carving and creating a new path and so it's overwhelming. No, there are so many wonderful, great personalities before us that have walked on the path of bhakti. And all we need to do is that we need to increase our attraction for Krishna consciousness, and simultaneously what happens is that our addiction for sense enjoyment decreases. One of the ways that actually people are taught is that if you want to overcome your addiction, then you have to find something higher. A higher taste. If you mechanically try to overcome an addiction, so an addiction for sense enjoyment, then what happens is even if 20 years and 30 years, 40 years you were able to overcome it, eventually you'll return to it because you don't necessarily have a higher taste yet. But when you naturally develop a higher taste, then your lower taste naturally subsides. So similarly, we're so used to and accustomed to hearing so many mundane things. If we actually look at the quality of our discussion with our peers, with devotees, most of the time it's about complaining about the weather, the prasadam, gossiping about this person did that, that person did this, why is this happening, why is that happening? So then what happens is we don't necessarily realize it, but this is actually a self-destructive behavior that degrades our character, that actually degrades our wonderful qualities, and all we have to come face to face with is these very obnoxious qualities instead, which is very hard to live with. And then what happens is that pain then feeds into our addiction more. I'm such a terrible person. I'm such a negative person. I can't seem to attract any good person in my life. But actually, we are the orchestrators of our own reality. So therefore, if we want the quality of our relationship with Vaishnavas to change, if we want our spirituality to deepen, if we want our quality of sadhana to enhance, then we have to actually be conscious of what we're allowing into our life and what we're setting boundaries for. And a good example is Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur used to chant so many rounds, and then when this prostitute came, in order to distract him from his chanting, did he surrender to that? No. The reason why he did not surrender to that is because it's called discipline. And discipline means, what does discipline mean? Discipline means making the hard choices now, then it becomes effective later. But when we actually give in to our will, when our willpower, our resilience, and our discipline is weak, then what happens is that any distraction that comes in our way, we immediately navigate to that. And a good example is that when we're chanting, we just want to check our phone. It's like when we're reading, we're getting distracted by what's going on around. All these examples, it means that we're lacking willpower, we're lacking resilience, and we're lacking tolerance. But that shouldn't make us lose hope. That shouldn't make us lose faith. It should actually inspire us that I can go a little bit deeper. It should actually encourage us to ask ourselves, what is my main attraction now? What is the thing that I prioritize? What is the thing that I value? Prabhupada actually mentioned that the temple is not just an Airbnb. He didn't say Airbnb, but he said it's not a place to just idle around. It's not a place that we just come and we're on autopilot. We're just kind of, going with the flow. No, we don't go with the flow. Rather, we identify what is the flow that I need to go with in my life. So that's really important. Otherwise, what it is that your body may be here, but your mind and spirit could be somewhere else. And then there lies no growth. So Haridas Thakur is a wonderful example of discipline. We need to discipline. We need discipline in our life. When there is a temptation to fall for the lower nature, the first thing that we should ask ourselves is, where is my conviction? What is the purpose for why I come to the temple? What is the reason for why I'm living at the temple? What is the reason for why I'm doing service? The quality of our question determines the quality of our life. If we don't ask these questions, then we can live in the temple our whole life and we're not going to actually reap the benefit. And we need to not just educate this to ourselves, but also to our children. We need to ask these questions to our children. We may think, but they're 6, 7. But it's like at a certain stage of their life, their mindset is set. And then what happens is that if we allow them to think that a temple is just a place to stroll around and run around and just kind of play around, then actually they won't reap the benefit themselves either. So how we treat our children, what we give to our children, is also, there's a reciprocation there. Haridas Thakur is one of them. But then there's also Bilva Mangala Thakur, discrimination. In the Bhagavad Gita, it said what is nectar in the beginning can be poisonous in the end. But then what is poisonous in the beginning can be nectar in the end. So Bilva Mangala Thakur is an example of someone who was actually pursuing someone that he thought that he had fell in love with, a prostitute, all the way across oceans and mountains. And then when he came into contact with her, you know what she said? If only you had that same level of attraction for Krishna. We have a choice. Yes, we have senses And we can be succumbed to our senses, but simultaneously we can also redirect our senses to something that actually helps us and empowers us. Don't for a moment think that you are actually the slave of your senses. You can actually transform that. And that's why I say, as important as it is what you're eating, it's just as important what you're hearing. Because what you're hearing then develops what is in your heart. Actually, if you take the word heart and you take the T and the H, you get ear. So therefore, what you hear is actually what goes into the heart. What enters into the ears, sits on the heart, and that becomes your meditation. So it's really, really important. What is your attraction? And learn to create discrimination. Don't go for the short-term gratification that will cause you a long-term regret. And that is with anything. With your eating, with your sleeping, with your association, with anything that you do in life. Ask yourself, is this what I need or is this what I want? And often the things that we want is what causes us pain. And the things that we need is what helps us to grow in our relationship with Krishna. Another person is Parikshit Maharaj. You know, Parikshit Maharaj only knew he had 7 days to live when he was bitten. Each one of us, we have an expiry date. And I know you don't like to hear that because you hear that all the time. But it's the reality. There's a tag on each one of us and every breath comes closer to that expiry date. But the question is, what are we actually doing about it? You know, it's like we live in this reality where we're trying to create a comfortable situation, even a comfortable situation in the temple. You know, it's like, yeah, every day, morning program, every day chanting, every day reading, every day hearing. Yeah, I'm comfortable with this. But no, we need to find an intensity that matches with our sensitivity. So then therefore we can go deeper. We need to find intensity. Without intensity, then what happens is then we lose clarity. You know, then we kind of just become an autopilot people. And that's what we're trying to avoid. And how do we do that? We need to realize what is the value of what I have. What is the value of Krishna consciousness? When we understand the value of Krishna consciousness and what it really has to offer to us and give to us, then, you know, we won't be lazy about it. We won't be idle about it. We'll see that this is a treasure house and there's so much depth. You know, my mentor always told me that Krishna consciousness is not linear, it's actually circular. It's not always about making progress forward, but it's also about going deeper. Sanatana Rupa Goswami. So many of you are working. You may have a wonderful job. People that are watching online, you may have a wonderful job. But you know, Sanatana Rupa Goswami, they used to work for the government. They had the most amazing pay rise, paycheck, and they were very comfortable. But when it came to the moment, their priority became straight, and they gave all that up to serve the Lord. So it's really important. Actually, Krishna consciousness is the foundation of everything in our life. Without it, what we will always do is we will actually increase the value of our living, but we will neglect the value of our life. Increasing the value of our living means more cars, more houses, better job, better paycheck, better this, better that. But no matter how much of a better that we haven't developed great quality in the process. So therefore, Sanatana Rupa Goswami, and there's an amazing example that when you actually give everything to Krishna, then Krishna gives you even more, without you even expecting it. He empowers you. So, and then the last person I want to mention is Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj is someone that exemplifies and oozes that, you know, he was in the pursuit for a greater kingdom. And these powerful words really, it touches my heart, and I'm sure it'll touch your heart. That, you know, I was searching for so many broken glasses, but what I had found was a jewel in the process of all that. So my recommendation, my urge, my humble request to each one of you is that don't make Krishna consciousness into just a side thing. You know, don't make it into a side thing, but make it the main thing. Whatever you do. And if you make it the main thing, that what you'll find is actually so many jewels in your life that Krishna has gifted you with. One of the symptoms in Kali Yuga, it is said, is that we're constantly concerned and worried about what others have, that we neglect to appreciate what we've been gifted. So, and this is just one of the things in Kali Yuga. But we can purify that. We can purify that through the process of sadhana bhakti. Spiritual practice, chanting, hearing. But the most important thing is association. You can chant, you can hear, but without the right association, you become the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So if you want to deepen your spiritual practice, then surround yourself with sadhus, saints. And what happens is then they'll actually bring the best out of you. And that's not what I'm saying. That's actually what Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra says. We all have samskar. We all have certain impressions. We all have certain conditionings. Sometimes in our life, we think that what we're doing is okay, but then we don't realize how it's actually affecting others around us. Have you ever noticed that? It's like, yeah, this is just the way I talk. This is just the way I do. Why is it affecting? We don't realize actually what is normal to us may actually be abnormal to someone else. So therefore, Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru, they say to us that we should be conscious of our behavior, of our character, and the sort of impact it is having on others. Otherwise, there is a potential that we commit Vaishnav aparad. It is said that actually the greatest loss in life is not death, but what dies inside while still alive. And that saying doesn't just go for us, but it also goes for what we may cause to others, what pain we may cause to others. We may think that a little discussion, a light-hearted argument, a little talk, making fun of people, I'm doing this and doing that. Yeah, it's okay. It's just what brothers do, what sisters do. It's okay. We're just having a laugh. But often we don't understand that the words that we utter, the impact and consequence it can have in the heart of another. So we have to be very mindful. What we say can actually be the cause of someone stopping practicing their spiritual life. But what we can say can also actually be the greatest help, support, and encouragement and contribution to someone carrying on their spiritual life. So whatever we do, however we think, whatever we say, we always have to ask ourselves, what does Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru think about this? How does these 3 elements coming together help us to move forward in our life? So, and it's really important. When we actually live our life in accordance to Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru, they help us to understand 3 things. And these 3 things are so important because often what is compared to is that, you all drive, right? You all drive. And, some of you may know the route to Bhaktivedanta Manor, others may not. But what it is that when you don't know where you're going, you have what is called a GPS. And then you kind of put in the address, you put in where you are and where you need to go, and it gives you the navigation of how to get there in the most easiest way, the easiest route, the least traffic, the least accidents, congestion, whatever it may be. So similarly, Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru are actually our GPS. They help us to understand who we are, our sambandha. So who are we? Are we this body? Or are we more? And some of you may deny, that, none of you will deny, but sometimes people say, but yeah, I am the body. But then actually there are scientific research in the way that people speak, even if you check the news, that there are evidence for there being a soul. There is evidence for reincarnation. There's so many evidence, the way people say, nowadays when someone passes away from a relative, I'm so sad that my mother passed away. So subconsciously we recognize that there is a presence in a body. Even if we don't want to consciously admit to it, subconsciously we've already acknowledged it. So therefore what it is that Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru, they help us to understand our sambandha, who we are, spiritual being. And not just our sambandha, our abhideya. The goal of life is not to watch movies and Netflix and, and just enjoy and go to a theme park. These are all relative. Yes, it's important to have moments of recreation, but they're not the ultimate. The ultimate is not sense gratification, but it's actually self-realization. It's understanding, and no matter how young you are, this is for young and old, it's actually understanding what is this journey that I'm on. And what is the destination? Our Sambandha, our Abhideya, and our Prayojana. They help us to understand this. And then when they help us to understand our Sambandha, who we are, then there's a beautiful thing that happens is that we no longer fear this concept of birth, because the soul never takes birth. This is all coming from the false ego, from attachment. When someone passes away, what happens? Their thought is, I can't believe I'm going to leave my material designation, my material equipment, my material things. So it's all the designation of the false ego. When people say that they're scared of dying, there's two things. They're scared of the unknown and they're scared of what they have to leave behind. So birth, but then death. What does death mean? Actually, for a spiritualist, death means is that we're trying to shift from the false ego to the true ego. Because when we actually shift into the true ego, then actually death becomes a process of embracing Krishna. Putting a stop to this repeated cycle of birth and death, of disease. So many times I see so many people, it's like, they have the energy of a young person, but their body is incapable of doing what was once able to do. So old age and disease. So you see how Sadhu, Shastra and Guru are actually our GPS to understanding our Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojana. And what it is that Sadhu, Shastra and Guru, they also help us to determine what happiness is. If we determine happiness by our body alone, we will never experience happiness. So it is said that everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid. So if our whole life we believe that we're just this body, then we will always look for ways to make the body happy, but in the process we neglect the soul, the Atma. And what is the goal of the Atma? It is said in Shastra, in the Bhagavad Gita, is that actually it wants to live forever. What is our goal? What is the purpose of life? What drives people? They want to live forever. They want to know it all. And they want to be happy. They want eternal happiness. These are actually the nature, the qualities of the soul. So if you look at our entire civilization, from when you grow up, going to school, getting a job, and even in your old age, you're constantly pursuing for these three things. I want to live forever, hence why you've got scientists trying to find ways to be immortal. Like I believe it was Walt Disney that somehow found a way to freeze his brain, thinking that one day that immortality will be found and then he'll be able to live again. But then something happened, there was an accident, and then the whole machine kind of switched off. So people want to live forever, naturally. But not only do they want to live forever, what is the purpose of education? What is the purpose of school? People want to know. They want to know a lot of things. It's not just enough doing 1 degree. Nowadays, people do 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees, 5 degrees. There's people even in their 70s going back to university. They want to learn. They want to know more. And Ananda. I want to learn more because I want to know how to be happy. So these are all the nature of the soul. So if only we started to realize that I'm a spiritual being, then we can experience all these things on the highest platform, not on the gross level. And all this comes, again, from our own spiritual practice. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, what is night for all beings in the time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. So we may think that we're missing out. We may think that in Krishna consciousness, we're missing out on all the fun. But actually, disciplined practice actually helps us to experience the highest happiness and bliss. So I'm just going to kind of conclude it there. So like I said, the most important thing with everything that I shared is just find your sadhana and go deeper in that sadhana. Don't just be satisfied with chanting but see how you can develop a deeper relationship with Krishna in that chanting. It's like two people talking at each other rather than talking to each other. So similarly, if 16 rounds is the ultimate goal, then that's like talking at Krishna. But actually, if we want to talk to Krishna, then it's not just about the number, it's also about the quality. And that's not just with sadhana, that's also with prasadam. When you're honoring prasadam nowadays, it's like the heaviest conversations happens at the time of prasadam. But that's Krishna that you're honoring. So therefore, ask yourself, how can I actually have a quality time eating or honoring prasadam? How can I have quality time honoring prasadam? And how can I leave my conversations, all these heavy conversations, for when there is time? That's prasadam. Also for reading. Don't just read for information, but read to realize wisdom. So these are some few things, and try and apply it in your life and see how it goes. And Krishna will reciprocate. Krishna says, to the degree that you surrender, I reward accordingly. And that's what it means to die before dying. It means to put aside all these kind of like fast-paced, moving, gotta do this, gotta do that, and center ourselves on who we are and take it from there. We only have a minute. I wish I can open a space for questions and answers, but I'll be around. So if you do have any question, and it's nice, beautiful out, so if you do have a question, then feel free to approach me and ask. But thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nittai Gaur Pramanande. Hare Krishna.
Hanuman ki jai. Good evening, everyone. We'll start the Gora Arati now. The words are on the screen on the top right hand side, and you can just follow when I sing. Ki bajayo jayo Gora Chandere Arati ko sobha. Shiva Jayo Jayo Gora Chandere Arati ko sobha. Jana Vita Tavane Jag man lobha. Jana vita tavane jag man lobha. Ko sobha jag jan man lobha. Gaurange arati ko sobha jag jan man lobha. Dakin nitai cha mame gadadhara Nikate Advaita Shrini Vasa Chatridhara Nikate Advaita Shrini Vasa Chatridhara Boti Jate Goracha Ratna Simbasane Boti Jate Goracha Ratna Simbasane Arati Kore Na Brahma Adi Devagane Arati Kore Na Brahma Adi Devagane Narahari Adi Kori Chamar Dulaya Narahari Adi Kori Chamar Dulaya Sanjaya Mukunda Basu Godadigaya Sanjaya Mukunda Basu Godadigaya घंटा बाजे बाजे करता